Let's get this going. Mahesh Chand, the founder of C# Corner and the CEO of Mindcracker Inc., is going to be talking to us today about how to build a self-sustaining software consulting company. So thank you, Mahesh.
Thank you, Cord. Thanks for the introduction. I hope everybody can hear me just fine. Also, I hope everybody is staying safe this COVID times. It's just something we have never been through. And here we are, doing virtual conferences. So in this today's session, what I'm going to talk about is if you are one of the guys, mostly software development, we are here in software. This conference is all about software development. So I'm assuming everybody here, is software, professional. Either you are a, software engineer, you're team lead, you're, architect, whatever your role is. And this session is for somebody who wants to actually work, their own as a consultant or start their own consulting business. Usually I do this talk in person and there's more direct communication, there's more Q&A, and I ask people, if they are in the room, they are all software developers, full-time job, or they're working as a consultant, or they have their own companies. So right now it's a little bit hard for me. But anyway, we'll go through this. So as you can see, we are going to discuss in this is, goal is really if you're thinking to start your own software consulting, either as a just one-man show, or you are planning to even build it more beyond you and hire more friends, work with friends, or even hire your own employees. How do you build that? So we're going to run through some of these topics, understanding the difference between consultant versus full-time job. We're going to learn about risks and rewards for being an independent consultant or run a company. And are you really, not everybody's actually, you will be surprised, not everybody's is a material. That's what we're going to talk about that. Where do you and how do you start? How do you launch and promote yourself? We're going to talk about, how do you build your reputation, and eventually how do you become successful? And then how do you sustain it? Now you'll say, okay, who am I to talk about this, right? Who am I to talk about this? So little intro of myself. I started my own software consulting when I was at 25. So it's been for 20 years. And pretty much I've been very successful during this conference. This is my business. Company was Mindcracker when I started that. Beside that, my intro here is I'm a former Microsoft regional director. I'm a 14 times Microsoft MVP. If any of you guys are familiar with Microsoft MVP program, it's a pretty big program. I also founded a website called C# Corner in December 99 actually, and launched in January 2000. And it's pretty much open source community. It's like, even though code, we cover C#, it wasn't open source as a language at that time. But today, it's pretty much, C# Corner covers everything. So, it covers your, Android development, all about software development, Android, iOS, you start with C#, .NET, or anything, including, React, Angular, and so on and so forth. So today, C# Corner, it's one of the largest open communities for software development. I'm also an author of several programming books. I wrote these programming books when I was 23, 24 years old, and that's really how I got into my own consulting. Again, the goal of this whole session is I'm going to share what I learned in my past 20 years, mostly a lot of mistakes I made. So any of you guys trying to start your own business or trying to say, I'm bored of this full-time job, I'm looking for something different, you can avoid those mistakes which I made and I learned over these 20 years. Little introduction more here, just continue. Company is Mindcracker. It's basically Philadelphia based, and I will skip all these in details. You can just find more online. Some of the clients we work with, this is a list of local clients. Mostly our clients are local in Philadelphia area, from New York to DC. Those are the kind of companies we work with. We also work with several local startups. These are some of the startups we work as a company, as a Mindcracker, and I'm an advisor on some of these companies as well. So, and overall, what I'm trying to say here is that I have enough experience in the last 20 years, messing around, making so many mistakes and learning from that. That's what really I want to share with you guys here today. And obviously, some of you may already have a company. You may already have work as a consultant, independent contractor, or you call it consultant, doesn't matter. But again, any questions you have, my goal is to answer your questions. That's the end goal of this session. I will just run through that, and I believe we have 45 to 50 minutes. So first, I'm going to run through these different slides and share my experience. And then any questions you have, just feel free to post in the chat, and Court will come and we'll go through those questions. So let's start with that. When we are in software development, usually, we have two kind of employment, right? Either you are a full-time employee, you work for a company and you get a salary, and obviously you get, bonuses, increments over time, and so on and so forth. And the other one is independent contractor. Independent contractor, they're also called consultants. Names up doesn't matter. Point here is that if you work your own, and you work for either another consulting company or recruiting company, or you work your own. That's kind of what is the major difference here, right? So, and what are the basically advantage, disadvantage? That's what we're going to talk about that. Independent contractors are usually you get a contract. You work with a company, you get a contract. So usually, let's say it's a 6 months contract, you get a rate. Rate is fixed. It's an hourly rate or it's a fixed contract. We do, I work on different projects. Sometimes it's hourly rate. So we have, including me, we place these contractors on these client side, and there's hourly rate for that. Sometimes there are fixed cost projects where, companies like some of our clients, say Comcast, for example, or American Water, and these companies, they will say, okay, we have this project, can you help us build it? So we bid for that, we look at that, and then obviously we'll say, okay, 6 months, it's going to cost this much. So that's kind of pretty much you work in there. And then when you're working as an independent contractor, you can sometimes work as a W-2 employee as well as 1099. The difference here is when you are W-2, you kind of, even though you are working for a consulting company, you are working as hourly, you kind of still an employee. That means a lot of legal things are taken care by your company. But when you are working as a 1099 contractor with a company, then you're responsible for your own taxes and your own filing paper, and make sure you're invoicing those companies and clients you're working with. Most cases, what I'm here talking about in this session is when you are working as either independent consultant or contractor, or you're starting your own consulting company. Regardless, you work your own, just one-man show, or you have more than one person, either your friends or your employees, you still have to register a company. I highly recommend that. You don't just work. You can work on your name, you can use your social security number, but the reason I'm saying you start your own company is that's exactly I'm going to talk about an advantage and why you should be registering as a company. So before I start with that, let's think about risk of being independent consultant, right? So you are independent consultant, you work your own. What is the biggest risk? We run through that. If you're already working, if you have worked for a company, I'm sure you already know about that. But if you have not, you've been full-time employee your own life, and you want to go say, I want to venture out myself and I want to, work my own. What are those risks? Well, let's start with a few points here. First risk is there's no job security. Okay, like if you're a full-time employee, there is a job there. I'm going to get paid every month, regardless of sometimes you may be sick, sometimes you have vacation, sometimes so on and so forth. But you're going to get that paycheck every month, and it's a fix. So you already know my salary is this much. I'm getting every month this much. But when you work as an independent consultant, you don't know. Sometimes you get a contract, say you get a 6-month contract, you get a 1-year contract, you get 2-year contract. But sometimes contract go as you plan, but there are once in a while there will be a contract where it may be done early. This happens all the time, right? So there is no job security. Number two, there's no benefits most cases, right? There's nobody's giving you health care. There's no health benefits. There's no vacation. There's no perks. It's pretty much more you work, more you earn. Less you work, less you earn, right? If you're taking vacation, nobody's going to come and pay you. So this is, you have to think all these things. And again, this all depends on person to person. And this is only if you're trying to build your own, say, I want to go my own, I want to build my own consulting company, or I want to start just as independent consultant. These are some of the challenges you have to run through. And third point is delayed or no payment. Sometimes I have worked on projects, I have worked on clients, usually smaller clients. If you're working for a big, large corporation, they already have a process. Okay, they have a process. You have to submit invoice. After 30 days, you're going to get paid, or 60 days, you're going to get paid. But when you are dealing with the small companies, small clients, you have to be careful. And I work with a lot of small startups and small companies, small businesses, where, sometimes they think they have budget, then they don't have budget. Sometimes they're going to pay you late. So when you're dealing with the small businesses, you have to be careful. Make sure in your contract, you clearly identify when you are going to get paid, what are the terms, and just stick to those terms. Okay, try to negotiate with the company so you don't fall behind too much. Don't go like 90 days payment, 90 days terms, right? Try to do 10 days, 15 days, or sometimes even like as soon as you invoice, try to get paid. Sometimes this good thing with smaller companies is they may even pay you right away, or sometimes even upfront. So for example, I'll give an example, right? If you have a 3 months contract and you have some deliverables, you can say, hey, if I deliver, can I get paid on my deliverables? Because then also it makes sense. You can deliver early and get paid early. That's also possible. So try to do that. Try to not fall behind. I remember on one of my clients, I became friend. I was working with this guy, and then he didn't pay me 30 days. Then he didn't pay me in 45 days. He didn't pay me 60 days. And end of the day, I never got paid. So that's kind of thing you have to avoid. If some, client is not paying for whatever reason, maybe you want to stop working. Okay, you have to be careful with that. And then if you are an independent consultant, there's a lot of legal work also. And, we are software developers. My background is software. My whole life I've written code, okay? My master's degree in programming. So I'm a programmer, and I know how much we hate legal work in accounting and taxes. It's just because it doesn't interest us. So that's another thing you have to keep in account when you work your own is make sure you have to learn all those things. And I have, other slide more talk about those. And then if you are an independent consultant, you always have to continue learning new things, and you have to establish yourself as an expert in at least one of the areas. If I'm a full-time employee, I'm working on a company, my company only does, say React development, and they're using MongoDB, and they're using Express, and so on and so forth. I know all I have to do is learn these things, okay? And then I'm safe. At least my job is safe because that's all we are building our new products in. But if you are an independent consultant, even though your expertise in, say, web front-end development, or let's just say front-end development using React or Angular, you may have to still continue learning new things because chances are you may not have those projects available in the what you're looking for. So you have to kind of expand your expertise in that. While expanding expertise, you also have to establish yourself expert in at least one of those. So give you an example. One of my friends, he's an expert in just PWA, Progressive Web App. That's all he does. So if you look at every time he talks, every time on his profile, every time he writes, or anybody, all he talks about PWA, and we all see him as a PWA expert. So in one of our projects, when we need PWA, we know we can go to Chris. So that's how you have to think, at least. And obviously, as you can see my note here at the bottom, I am going to talk about how do you mitigate these risks going forward. So you make sure you have job security, make sure if you don't have benefits, how you take care of this, make sure you don't have delayed payments, and so on and so forth. So looks like so far we're doing good. Guys, just you can let me know if I'm going too fast, too slow. Feel free to, post comment in there. So we just learned what are the risks of being an independent consultant, but what are the rewards? And I'll go back, like, why did I start my own consulting, right? Why did I not work for a company? Well, and it happened with me, and I just kind of just happened to me that, I was a single dad. I'm single dad for a while now, and I had a young son, and he really liked to play basketball. And he really liked to play basketball. And as we know, if you have children and your kids are really good and you're playing, varsity or AAU sports, you have to spend so much time traveling, driving them, traveling with them every evening and weekend. There's something. And me being as a single dad, it was really hard for me to work full time in a company because you cannot leave. It's like pretty much 8 to 5. Sometimes it's 6. And I was young at that time. You're not at the position where you can leave, right? So I was like, it's hard for me. I'm just gonna find the job that kind of gives me the flexible hours, right? So that's really how I started my own, and that kind of got me into that. And I was lucky enough that I had some good friends. They were able to get me some, interviews in the very beginning. And I also had a good profile set up. So everywhere I went, people already kind of knew me because I have written programming books by the time. C# programming language and .NET was really new at that time. And I'm talking about 2000, 2001 and 2002. .NET was so new, nobody knew it. And I was the only one. I've written a book by that time. So wherever I walked in any company, they thought I'm an expert, even though I didn't know anything about it. So sometimes, your profile helps a lot. I remember I went to my first contract job, and the project manager who was interviewing me is like, "Oh, Mahesh, I already know you. I read your article on C# Corner, and we don't know what to ask you because .NET was so new at that time." So that's another thing is and I'll talk more on other slides as well, how do you build your profile so people see you as an authority in a specific area. Once they start seeing an authority, then you're become getting a new project, getting a new job, or getting a new client. It's become so easy. And that's what I learned throughout my whole process. Other reward of being an independent consultant is what I like is that it's always interesting and challenging work. It's not same board project all the time. Sometimes you go to these clients and you just learn about people, you learn about work, like how these companies work. I work with Fortune 500 companies, I work with the small companies, I work with the startups. It's just so much fun learning and solving these problems. But sometimes it gets boring too. Sometimes I remember one company, I was hired as a .NET architect, but they gave me work on Excel and VBA. So that's other thing, when you are working as an independent consultant, sometimes clients sees you as the expert and problem solver, so they'll ask you to help them with anything. And that's where it becomes interesting, is if you are able to help that client on the problems they are having, out of sudden, that's how you build the trust. And that's how they're going to keep coming to you every time they run into a problem. Other rewards here, as you can see, is sometimes, you're working as independent consultant, sometimes you get really good rates and you can work more hours, you can work weekends, depends on your, and sometimes you can work on multiple projects. So you can really, really increase your income. Frankly speaking, I was working full-time employee down in town, PA, which is not far from, Lancaster. By the way, I'm local, guys. So even though I don't come to this group a lot, I'm local. I came from India in 1998 in downtown PA. So, downtown PA salaries are very low. I was getting 50K a year. That was my salary. But once I became, started my own, my salary almost doubled or more, sometimes even triple, because I'm now billing hourly and my rates are good. So you have to look at all those, variables. And then last thing very important here is that when you work as an independent consultant, and it's legal and it's allowed, is you write off a lot of expenses. And I will talk more about on this. I'll take all your questions as well. But legally what government says is that if you are earning some money, you are making some money, and you are using your home, you are using your car, you are using some of the utilities for earning that money, you are allowed to write off some of these expenses. And that this kind of adds up because so many taxes, right? So for example, if you are working as independent consultant, you always mostly working from home, even though you go to the client side sometimes. Even though you're full-time there, you still work. At least some part of your home is being used for businesses, like either you're doing taxes, you're getting business mails, you're getting checks, you're invoicing, you're doing still, some of the business activities are being done from your home. So you can literally in your taxes can write off a portion of your home. Portion really depends on how much you're using it. So for example, if you have 4 rooms in your house and one of the room is just say this is my office, you can literally go and write off 20% of your net income to run business from home. And this kind of helps in long run as well, especially if you're a small business you are running as independent consultant. But one thing we have to keep in mind when we really working as an independent consultant is that you have to, and working from home, now look at the COVID times, right? You have to be disciplined. And this sometimes, we all go through these phases where, we don't feel like working hard. And obviously, thanks to this Netflix and HBO and so many shows coming up, I remember one time, new show, I never watched that, one of the popular show on HBO, I forgot the name, I think Game of Thrones. So Game of Thrones, I never watched it until last year, a year before. Once I start watching it, so tempting and interesting, I end up wasting so much time. This happens all the time. So you have to kind of train your brain, say, hey, if I am in this room, if I'm at this desk, I have to just do some work. You can't be watching TV and still thinking work. Then what will happen is you may not get the work done on time. So these are some of the, you have to look into those, your aspects. So far so good. Looks like we're doing good. We, on time-wise, we are good. So let's think about, you say, you know what, I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to become my independent consultant. It's probably right now is probably not the right time because of the COVID. Not too many companies are hiring. Plus, everybody's kind of working from home. But let's say COVID is over, and so I hope it's over in 6 months. Looks like we're going to get vaccine soon. You may say, what, I want to, I want to change something in my life. I'm bored at work, or I'm not making enough money, or I don't like my boss, or I don't like my company. Just a lot of people do it. They complain a lot. I run C# Corner. On C# Corner, we have live shows where I hear all the time, a lot of people complain about, oh, I don't like my work. I don't like my company. I don't like my boss. Well, here's the best part for being a software developer or any part in the software professional is that there's so many jobs available and they're growing. They're not just going down. Okay, software field is still growing big time. If you are willing to learn new things, go find the job you like. Go find the job you're passionate about. Go find a company you enjoy. Go find your boss where you enjoy their company, right? This is just, but you have to do it. Like, you can't just be like, stop, you can just be complaining and don't do anything, right? So that's where really defines you if you are a software consultant material, because it's challenging work. And not all the time. Sometimes you'll get easy projects. Sometimes you may say, hey, here's a project, come here, sit in the team, be a part of the team, and you just work as an employee. That's simple there. But from time to time, as I said, you're going to get this work where you may not even have done before, where you may not have agreed with the client saying, oh, I didn't sign up for that. I'm supposed to be .NET architect. I cannot do VBA, right? But client don't care. They just need help, right? They're looking for help, and they see you as the guy who can really, who's Superman or Superwoman, who can change everything, who can help them. That's what they're looking for. So you may have been, you may get thrown into this work where you have, it's hard, and you may have to learn that. You have to get your hands dirty, as I said. And sometimes there's pressure as well. And we all know pressure is this, so I don't need to explain you that. Even you, it doesn't matter if you're a full-time employee or you are a consultant, doesn't matter, or contractor, doesn't matter. One thing, obviously, I really recommend is if you want to become your independent consultant or contractor, you have to be a problem solver and think outside the box, because sometimes you have to go to these clients, sometimes they're just thinking one way. Okay, so if you just go with them, that's great, that's fine. But you also have to tell them, okay, you want to build this next project, to say you are building a next website. It's a large website, you want to build this in ASP.NET. Maybe that's not a good idea, even though they like it. You have to tell them, like, that's great, but there's new things out there. There's Blazor out there, there's React there, there's Angular there. So at least try to, you should become like not just one of their employees, but also more like a thinking outside and also advising them on things. That's what brings you value to the company, right? Now, company out of sudden is going to think like, this guy is not like anybody else. He's also telling us, how to do things better, how to improve. And frankly speaking, when I work in, right now, these days I don't do a lot of coding, but earlier days when I was working myself, just one guy, single, one-man show, I used to also even teach and take sessions, every week with the whole company. Say, hey guys, this .NET new feature came out, and during lunchtime, I'm gonna talk to, if you're interested, just come listen to me. That's what brings you, brings you to the highlight. That's what management just start noticing you, that, okay, this guy's not only doing the work he's supposed to do, but he's also kind of helping our company to get better at things what we do. And that also brings my next point. You have to be a constant learner. You cannot be just, not learn and expect the same work keep coming again and again for over years, because keep in mind, companies are looking for somebody who can come and help them and teach them, sometimes even mentor their team to the newer things. That in most cases, that will make you better. That will make sure you're always in demand. And then obviously there are two last points that those are very important. You have to understand people, right? And personalities. When you are working with different clients over time, you will deal with different people. You have to understand them, where they're coming from, and then what they're expecting, and all that thing that has to be a part of the thing. And I know a couple of my friends, they have been working as independent contractor for a long time, for I would say 20 years. They always struggle. They have projects, but then once in a while they struggle a lot. And the reason is that they just want to go tell the client what they think is the right way. And they sometimes, they say, no, they clearly talk to clients, say, you are wrong. So you have to think from both sides. You just cannot be that, this is my way and this is the best way. So that's how you really build a relationship. And the last point is you have to have a thick skin, right? Because many places I went, employees sometimes are not going to like you. It's simple, because, when I work, I was hired direct by these senior guys to come there and help their team. So sometimes team members going to think you that, okay, you are much better than them, or you may have to, and I frankly was asking them to learn new things. I was asking them to deliver faster, whatever they were doing. I was asking them to move to, let's say, start doing agile and keep track. So not too many people are really going to like you. There will be some employees, they're going to, push back. And they're going to actually complain to the management also. They'll say, oh, he doesn't know anything. And I remember I work on a, medium company, small, there were about 15 people in the team. And the guy who was running the project wasn't really technical. So some of the team members will go and show them old articles and even prove them that anything I was recommending is wrong. So this happens all the time. So you have to be ready for that. This is a part of the business, okay? You're going for as an outsider in the company. You cannot expect everybody to just give you a red carpet. So these are just some of the things. So if you think you can you can take on challenges, you can get dirty, you can handle pressure, and you want to learn and you want to think outside the box, and you are okay, you have thick skin, you don't care what people think of you, that's maybe that makes you really a good consultant material, independent consultant material. So we just learned, okay, what are the, we just learned a few things. We learned about what are the risks and rewards of being independent consultant or start your own company. So I'm here in my case, regardless of you work through a company or have your own company, I'm thinking about when you're starting as your own company. We also learned that what your expectations should be at client side. This is normal. You cannot be the guy who just really get mad when people complain about you. This is normal because you are an outsider. Okay, so you already now know at least that yes, I am I'm going to start my own consulting business, not during the COVID time, but maybe 6 months or a year from here. How do I now? How do I do certain things? What do I should be ready, right? How do I plan that? How to launch to market? So let's look at some of those points here. By the way, a lot of these points I learned from is I help my friends. I help some of the people I work with. They start their own businesses. And when we are talking about, this is an open source conference. We talk about open source. Open source is great. We are writing code, we are sharing with everybody, but open source doesn't have to be just the source code, right? Open source can also be anything. You're sharing your knowledge. So what I do, trying to do it through, my sharing through either C# Corner or these events is I share everything I learn. So the purpose of only that is that so mistakes I made, things I learned through, hopefully it will help you move faster. So that's where really I come from. So how do you launch? So what do you have to be ready before you say, what, I want to go ahead and go my own? First thing is, don't just quit right away, okay? You have to have a few months backup plan, at least 3 months backup plan, okay? First of all, you have to have a solid resume, and then you have to promote the resume. Now, you may say, I don't want my company to show that if I'm looking for a job. That's fine. There's different ways to do that. If you go to the portals, you can set that up that don't show this company to my resume, right? Then you definitely have to build your professional profile. Okay, that's very important. If you don't have a company, you just want to go your own, at least start with LinkedIn. Start with LinkedIn, start with Twitter. LinkedIn is actually where most of the jobs, independent contracts these days come from. Good thing about LinkedIn is a lot of people you already know there. They are your either co-worker in the past, or you work for a company, or you hired somebody. So that's how really you build your professional network. And then once you build your profile, make sure it's up to date. Make sure your profile, when I look at your profile or any company looks at your profile or client looks at your profile, make sure they get the clear idea exactly what your expertise is, because everybody's looking for expert people. Even though you may not be expert in anything, but at least your profile should say what you really do and what you're good at. Don't put everything is there, because that's just going to confuse. So let's take an example. If you are good at, say, .NET, or if you are good at, say, Angular, make sure you can say, I'm a senior Angular developer. Then also make sure your projects kind of validate that. All the projects you're putting there should clearly say that, because I did this work in there. So don't just, I see a lot of LinkedIn profiles, they're old, right? So first thing people these days do is, if I'm hiring independent contractor, I will go to LinkedIn, I will search them in Google. So those are the two things I will do. And I also look at their Twitter profile. So Google searches, LinkedIn and Twitter. That's where you go and start looking at your profiles. Make sure if somebody's searching, you don't come as a non-experienced person. Your profile should become there. Google, you can also update your profile in Google as well, what your expertise are. Then, so don't leave your job yet. Make sure you have solid resume, and make sure you have the niche, expertise in one area, and you have a solid profile built on these LinkedIn. And if you're starting your own company, obviously you're going to build a website that also says the same thing about your expertise and so on and so forth. Then what you do is you start talking to people, start talking to recruiters, start talking to your friend, start talking to anybody in your professional network who you can trust that, hey, I'm going to start my own, either my own company or I'm going to go my own in 3 to 6 months. What can you do? Let's think of, so look at that, go back to your old contacts, go back to your business cards. If you still have those deck of business cards where you know that you work for this company or you hire this guy or you work with these coworkers, where are they, right? Go with that. And good thing with us is most software developers, we are kind of up to date with our professional network anyway. So that's a good thing. It shouldn't take much time. Then definitely meet the recruiters who either hired you or you hired from them, whatever. Recruiters can be your best friend in this because that's their job, to finding the jobs, finding the clients, and placing people, right? So don't feel like recruiters are the bad guys. Go meet them, have lunch with them, and just become friend with them. That's where you may also get a lot of work because they're always in demand. They're always, looking for somebody. Once you do all that, and then try to get a project side by side, and when you have 6 months contract where you know that you are really good for 6 months, then you really kind of leave. Again, don't leave. Make sure, obviously, we all know that, but I still want to emphasize that don't leave your company on bad terms. If you have a 2 weeks notice or whatever, or you have to do some knowledge transfer to your next people, or you need to even help them hire your replacement, just do as much as you can, because chances are you may end up talking to them again in future. It happens all the time. People leave one company, go to another company, come back again. If you look at the history, even though we feel like it's a big space for software development, there's so many, it's still very small. We are all connected to each other. So make sure your professional relationship is still there. Most of you already know that, so I don't need to repeat that. All right, so I think we have covered pretty good topics. You want to start your own company. You feel like, what, I'm done working full time. This is it. I'm going to start. How do you start? We just learned that, what you have to prepare for. The next step comes is that how do you protect yourself? Because when you work yourself, a lot of legal issues will come direct on you. Okay, so how do you protect yourself? This is very important, especially if you are starting a company where you may work as a company, or you may even hire a couple of guys with you, either your friends, doesn't matter, or employees, right? So first thing I want to talk about these points, what they are, how they work, and some may not be applicable on you, some maybe, but I want to at least put them out there because at least you know them, and when you have any questions on details on a specific, we can go into more details later. So I'm sure you have heard of NDA. NDA is very important, non-disclosure agreements. Make sure you have one-page NDA every time if you're trying to share your ideas, your company details with anybody. Especially, this is usually the case when you're trying to build something. But if you're working for a company or some company, especially small business, they're going to ask you to sign an NDA. So you have to be careful with that NDA. Even if you're working for, let's say you want to work as an independent consultant, but want to work through a recruiting and staffing company, you have to look at their non-disclosure as well as their non-compete. Okay? Sometimes they just write so much that, once you work with us in healthcare, you cannot work with any other company in healthcare within 100 miles. So you have to be careful with that, what you sign. That's very important. I have two friends, actually. They went to legal issues when they left a company, they started their own company, but they were working through a recruiting staffing agency, and they went into legal trouble because they were not supposed to work in that. The contract said that you cannot work for any company in 50 miles of radius in similar business, which means building software. So you have to be careful with that. Now, next thing you have to say, you have to, even though you want to work as an independent contractor, consultant, both our terms are interchangeable, you should register a company. Don't use your name. And the reason for that, if you use your name in Social Security Direct, and let's say something bad happens, with the company or client, everything will come to you. Means you're personally liable. Your personal house, your personal car, any asset you have that may be come in picture. So what happens? Just create a simple register a company, simple LLC. LLCs are perfect for that. It doesn't cost a lot. And what happens once you register a company, everything goes in the company. They can only sue you, the company, not you personally. So that kind of protects you. And you can talk to any attorney or your tax guys about that. That's pretty simple. LegalZoom is another where you can learn online. It's not costly, okay? It will hardly cost you a few $100s. I would say $500 to register the company and pay for the fees for a year. If you are trying to start your company, or then you want to probably trademark your brand. Means, let's say you want to call your company ABC LLC. Make sure that there's no ABC LLC. You have to trademark your name so there's no conflict. For example, if I go today and register, say my company name is Microsoft, I will get sued by Microsoft. You have to look at that company name. All the legal contracts you're going to sign, make sure every company probably going to ask you, every client is probably going to ask you to sign a contract. You have to really look at seriously. Sometimes the language can be tricky in that. I know one client I work for, it said clearly that once you work with us, you cannot work with anybody who does similar business. Which means out of sudden, if I'm working for, let's say, a bank, I cannot work for other banks building similar software. So you have to look at very carefully with that. Be transparent when sign the contracts. So anything you don't need to hide, whatever it is. Sometimes you have to be transparent because that kind of saves you for future legal troubles. Yes, and then accounting and finances. That's where a lot of trouble comes. You have to make sure you are clear on those. You are doing what's supposed to do legally. These little problems sometimes can become big because our laws are very strict on these. Pay taxes on time. Sometimes you have to look at what your accountant is telling you. If you have to pay every 3 months, you have to pay that on time. If somehow you delay, that's fine, as long as you go through the legal process, whatever it is. And that's where I would go for. You talk to your accountant. Again, cost of all these is not much. It's a few $100s. Record everything. The best part these days is that if you run everything through, say, let's say QuickBooks Online, everything you run through that. Anytime you get money, it goes in there. You create invoice from there. Every time you spend any money, make sure you have a separate credit card and just use one credit card for business. That's I highly recommend. Is then everything on that. Don't use that card for personal, right? So everything is on my one credit card. This is all business. When you go to accountant, give him there's online you can download, or he can log in online. You can just give him that, hey, this is my credit card I use for business. Try not to mix your personal with business. That kind of will help you, move things faster and keep everything clean. And definitely, another problem, that's a good point. I saw, comment, IP is a big also challenge that some companies going to ask you to sign that who owns the IP. Sometimes if you're writing a code, you have to look into that as well. So how much is it going to cost me to run a business? This is where I'll spend a little bit more. And then again, the end of the goal is that, I want you to make sure if any questions you have, we can put in a chat. So after this session, when I'm done with my slides, we will then go through more of those details in the chat. And I want to still run through those. Some of them you may need and you may not need. So when you register a company, how much is going to cost you? Well, there's a company registration fees, few $100, I think $250. Then you're going to get federal and ID and state registration. And then after that, you'll have to pay annual fee. Annual fee depends on the state. And then you have to have an agent. It's not a lot. It's few $100 again every year. Once in a year, you have to pay that. As soon as you register a company, you're going to create a bank account. That's very important. Don't use your personal account. I highly recommend once you have your company, documents came from your state, say Pennsylvania, came from a state, go register a company. a bank account. Go to bank, open an account, and use that for everything. All the business expense, all the business income comes, just use that account. That's gonna make your life very, very simple in long run. And again, that's the headache we don't want. And personally, I don't want the headaches of those managing bank accounts and finding out how much I spend. I know a friend, he keeps track of everything, like every receipt he's going to restaurant, every receipt. That's fine. Government's supposed to require that, not anymore, as long as you use one credit card, and then those credit card statements digitally are there. That's fine. If you have a website, you're probably gonna get it built or develop yourself. Then you're gonna have a hosting fees. So that's kind of another fees you have to pay for that. Obviously, you're gonna pay for accounting. Accounting is gonna cost you, depending on your accountant in local areas, usually cost a few $100. I would say depending on how much work they do. Sometimes they charge hourly, sometimes they do fixed. And if you're really small, you don't need accountant. You will just need accountant in the beginning. Then you can even go file these taxes yourself, or go to some smaller, those in companies where you these all shops, HR department, block or one of those. It all depends on how much work you're doing really. Then you probably want to put everything in QuickBooks. If you have multiple clients and you're managing more, it's easy to manage everything. Get a QuickBooks account. It's for one guy, I think it's $9.99 a month, nothing major. But if you are growing to a bigger company, let's say you have a big contract, you're hiring 5 guys, 10 guys, you want to start doing payroll, that's going to be extra cost for you, ADP. But I think in the beginning, if you're really thinking to start a company, you probably won't need that. And then expense report, right? Then you probably want to, have some kind of expense reporting done. Either whoever is doing that, that's going to be cost. If you're doing yourself, that's great. If you're hiring somebody, that's going to cost. Now, this all sounds like a lot of work. If you're thinking like, what, I'm just one guy, I'm going to work in a company, I'm going to write code, or am I going to do all this? A lot of this you don't have to do if you're just working on your own, frankly speaking. A lot of them are also one-time thing and once done. But once you learn that, like for example, QuickBooks, for example, accounting, a lot of things right now these days are managed through an app. Frankly, you can look at the app, and a lot of things you can do through app. And these days, I remember we even do payrolls, it's through app, because we have all the employees set up, their rates are set up, their salaries are set up. All you have to do is just click a button and it's done. So it's a kind of learning process. All right, we good, moving good, we are good on time. So then now comes is you need to build a reputation, and that's more like a marketing, right? When you work as an independent consultant or have your own company, it's very important to have a sales and marketing, and which is how you build your reputation and promote yourself. That's what we do here. That's how most projects we get, right? So you have to definitely clearly, if somebody visits your website or profile, as I said, people who are visiting it, they should clearly get an idea what you do. Okay, what are you good at? What your expertise are. That should be very clear there. I see on some website, if you put everything there, then that confuses everybody. You have to be definitely active these days on social media. If you are, I'm not saying Facebook, I'm not saying Snapchat, I'm not saying Instagram, but you have to be at least very active on LinkedIn. GitHub is also good to be active on. Twitter is also good. Twitter may not bring you business, but it kind of will bring you a lot of connections, a lot of friends. And I get a lot of connections in my friends and on Twitter because I read them and I comment, and that's how you get up to date. Also because LinkedIn, people don't really update a lot these days. I mean, they have started growing more. So you have to look at where your friends are, where your professional network is. Those are 3 things are very important. Then you need to figure out, okay, so I build my profile, I build my expertise. Now, what else can I do? What else can I do, right, to promote myself and my name and my brand and my business? end of the day, it's all business, right? More you are in front of people, more you're talking. So become a speaker. When you start going to speak at conferences and events, a lot of people, they're sitting there. They know exactly what you do. They know what your expertise are. They may tell your manager or go back to their company. I know a guy, he knows. So give you an example. When Microsoft HoloLens came a few years ago, I was very interested. I learned. We start building HoloLens apps, mixed reality apps, and I think a few years back, I was even at saying this user group, and I went took my HoloLens, gave demo to people. Because first of all, nobody has that, and this is how you start. Now everybody start knowing that we build HoloLens apps. If somebody wants that, it's already registering in their minds, right? So that kind of helps you in a long way. It's kind of, you are selling it, but you're not really selling it. You are basically more and more, your brand is getting out there. People know you. Then you go to conferences, definitely networking events and meetups. That's the best way you grow your professional network and business. You go to conferences, and that's where a lot of business happens, right? If you look at any successful consulting company, they will become, say, partner with Microsoft and say silver partner, gold partner, whatever. Then they will have they'll attend the conference, and eventually when they're big enough, they'll also have a booth at the conference, because that's where most people are coming there for either connections or help and finding next gig or finding next products to buy and so on and so forth. So definitely start going out there. You have to become, talk more. Now you may say, you know what? I already got a 2-year contract, 1-year contract. I'm good. After once this contract is done, I'll find another one. Nothing wrong with that, but you won't grow. There's growth limitation in there. That's fine if you're just looking for a job, but you still have to do a little bit extra. Make sure you're not just saying, I'm done, I'm good, I got a client and I'm good for 2 years. Because keep in mind, as I said on my very first screen, what if this client says, oh, Mahesh, I think we're done now. Why? Because we're going to change the plan, or we don't have budget, or we're going to just close this, shut down this project. It happens. It happens sometimes. Again, promote your expertise again and again. Just keep telling people what you do whenever you have a chance, either online these days or when speaking or in your network. Again, same thing with you talk at the events and meetups, tell everybody what you do, what you're good at and all that. And then end of the day, everybody who is in your network, especially LinkedIn or personal network, right? Your friends or family, just tell them what you're doing, what you're starting, and ask anything they need help with. Keep asking, right? Sometimes you just asking, eventually, something comes up. This happens all the time. And strangely, if I tell you some of these stories, you'll be surprised that sometimes I talk to these people and I like, this guy, I'm wasting my time. And that end up becoming the largest project. I've seen one guy, he called me for whatever, I'm talking to him. Then I met him. We had lunch and I was like, wow, what a time waste. And that did not end up becoming a 3-year project for long term with, several people working on it. So you never know. You cannot just, not take the call. So you have to just keep asking, keep meeting people. Now you'll say, you know what? I'm just a single guy. Am I supposed to work? Am I supposed to go to work and do the work? How am I going to do all this? Well, what the best way is, you set aside a little bit time. I mean, I'm not saying now in COVID times, so you can still go to the calls or online meetings, but you set up a day. For example, I know personally, every Thursday, I live outside. I live in Glen Mills, which is about half an hour from Philadelphia. So you have to look at where most projects are, where most jobs are, where most companies are, where your potential clients are. Okay, it won't be at your home, obviously. You have to find that area. And then you definitely start going and meeting people there. So what I do is every Thursday, there's a certain place in Philadelphia where all business guys hanging out, or there's event going on, there's meetup going on. Every Thursday I said, you know what, from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m., 9 p.m., that's where meetings are. Every Thursday I'm going to give you that. So in the beginning, you may just want to go once in a month, depending on how much time you can, give to this, but this is important for your business and yourself. All right, so far so good. So
Mahesh, just if we're running out of time here, so if you want to wrap this up, and then we could actually, just so folks know, I know there was one question in the chat. Please feel free. There's plenty of opportunity to chat with folks via direct messages or anything like that via this platform. Yep. So I'm sure Mahesh would be happy to answer.
Yes, definitely. I think this is my last slide. So the key here is just be there, available, right? Build relationships. We covered that. Make sure you under promise, over deliver, right? That's another thing is do not over promise. That could be the worst thing you want to do if you're running your own business. Build clients, educate clients. So we already covered a lot of these things. And your first thing should be if you meet somebody first time, just keep in mind that what am I doing or saying and showing that this person can trust me. So that's all people look for is first thing somebody meets you, first thing they ask you a question. Nobody cares what you are saying. First thing they ask is, can I trust this person? Can I trust this person? Just keep that in mind. And I believe with that, we just, there are a few more points here is that if you are trying to build your own company, you're going to think, how can I scale this thing? Because sometimes one person can't do it all. What is the best? Is there anybody I can groom that person can replace me? How can I find trusted friends and coworkers? And again, repeat customers are important. So don't just, sometimes you may lose a customer because there's no work, but you always go back to them because that's where most work comes from is recruit. It's very hard to get new customers. And we already covered that recruiters are your best friends. Build partnerships, network. First thing you always tell, hey, how can I help? Don't just think about, am I getting work or not? Eventually work will come. Once you have this mindset, I believe you will be successful and you'll build a successful consulting business. So there you go. And just my last quote is that half of the success is just be there and be available. So guys, that is all. I hope I helped some of you. If you have any questions, go ahead, Court. We can now go through any questions.